Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nicole, and today let's talk some books. So, I'm going to be wrapping up the month of July, which has seemed extremely long to me. And I think partially because I had to start filming July early, and there may have been extra weeks of reading included in there. I don't even know at this point. But so much happened in July that I definitely need to recap to figure out what happened. So, let's jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and start with my DNFs this month, and I won't be doing full reviews of these books that I'm going to mention. If you want to hear more of my thoughts on them, you can go ahead and watch some of my previous weekly reading wrap ups, where I talk a little bit more at length about all of my thoughts. In this, I'm just going to be going over why I either DNF'd a book or why I gave it the rating that I did. So for my DNFs this month, I had three, and those were for No Longer at Ease by Chinua Achebe, Zeno's Conscience, and The Mirror Thief. So for Zeno's Conscience, I'll start with that one. That was pretty simple. The reason that I actually stopped that book was I was listening to the audiobook of it while I was in the middle of a 10-hour drive during a move, and the narrator's voice was just so soothing and calming, it was making me tired. So just for basic safety, I actually had to stop reading a book. I did, however, want to continue reading that book, but mainly in physical form, and I couldn't find one when I first moved. I did find one the other day, though, so I'm super excited about that. But because I felt like I lost track of so much of it while listening to the audiobook, when I get to it, I'm just going to restart the book from the beginning. The other two books that I DNF'd were No Longer at Ease and The Mirror Thief, like I mentioned. And both of these were books that I basically DNF'd because I just couldn't get into them. No Longer at Ease is the second book in the trilogy by Chinua Achebe. I read Things Fall Apart in the month of June and absolutely loved that. And I did recall having read the second book in the trilogy and not liking it as much. And that was again starting to be my experience. But I was kind of in a tight bind with that book because I was actually borrowing it from the library. And by the time I circled back around to it, I only had 4 days left to read it. And it just didn't happen. I read chapter one, I wasn't pulled in, and I just didn't keep reading. Will I try it again at some point? Yeah, probably, and probably from the library again. The Mirror Thief was a slightly different experience. I listened to that on audiobook. I started getting really confused about the plot line. I think the plot line is actually slightly, well, definitely different than the norm, but I just wasn't feeling it as an audiobook. I wasn't that interested in finding a physical copy. I didn't find one from the library really easily, and it's just not a book that I was particularly interested in the topic. It seemed to be kind of a metaphysical science meets thief heist type of situation. So, not a topic, particularly the heist part, that I feel drawn to come back to. So, that is a permanent DNF for me. I had no one-star books this month, but I did have a two-star read. And the book that I gave 2 stars to is The Last Children of Tokyo. At the end of the day, this was a very short book, so I finished the whole thing, but I ended up feeling just kind of disappointed by it. I was talking to another viewer who was saying, nope, it was not the translation. I also was disappointed, particularly by some moments in the story, and she also just felt like it was kind of a muddled story overall as well as ending, which kind of confirmed how I was feeling about it. So I don't regret giving it a 2 stars. I didn't hate it. I just was like, it just wasn't good. One 3 star was To the Bright Edge of the World. I was kind of disappointed to give this book 3 stars. I really thought I was going to like it after reading Eowyn Ivey's book, The Snow Child, earlier this year. And this just didn't do it as much for me. Maybe my expectations were too high. I don't know. Because some people absolutely love To the Bright Edge of the World, and some of them like it better than The Snow Child. I just wasn't one of those. I thought the book was slow going at times and just I don't know. I just wanted more from it, and I was only vaguely interested in the story and felt like I was on the struggle bus sometimes, even though I was listening to it as an audiobook. Which I also have to comment on the fact that quite a few of the books that I didn't like this month were books that I listened to on audio. So I am kind of wondering if that's actually a thing for me. If it's really the audio that I'm not enjoying more than it is the books themselves, but I don't know. My other 3 stars went to The Confessions of an English Opium Eater. This was also a book that I thought I would really enjoy and also just kind of felt okay about. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great. I was expecting more. It was a book that I thought I'd really enjoy on audio, and I kind of did. I think the style and structure of the book, being a first person narrator kind of telling you their story, works as an audiobook because you feel like somebody's just talking to you, but I just wasn't interested in the story that was being told. I had 3 4-star reads this month, and for almost every single one of these books, I struggled as to whether or not to give them 5 stars instead of 4. The first book I'm going to talk about is Station 11. This is probably the one of the 3 books that I'm most comfortable with giving a 4 stars to. I really enjoyed this book, and I thought the premise was so fascinating, but it was told in multiple parts, and I felt like some of the overlap and the connections between the different perspectives was forced, or that there were times where a perspective we came back to just because she wanted to keep that perspective in the story. So, in terms of the structuring of the book and having the multiple perspectives and the way she interwove them, it didn't work for me. I didn't like it. And it's not because I don't like stories with multiple perspectives. I don't typically have a problem with that. Just for me, I didn't feel like it was successful in this book. And so, because of that, it ended up being 4 stars instead of 5. Otherwise, everything else about the book I really liked. I loved the writing, I loved the story that she had to tell overall. It reminded me a bit of what I've heard of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, where you have that person who's on a path of survival. It also reminds me of another book that I read later in the month of July that I did give 5 stars to. Next, I read Snowflower and the Secret Fan, and this was a really good story, and it's definitely one that has stuck with me. I recall a lot of the story, and I keep going, maybe I should have given that 5 stars. I'm still wondering. It still might happen. Anyway, this is a story that I just really enjoyed. It featured a really fascinating friendship, a super strong first person narrator, and just the story that she told was gripping from beginning to end. I wanted to know what happened in the friendship. I wanted to know what happened to her. I wanted to know what happened to the friend. I was just invested in all the characters and every perspective. Well, there was really only one perspective that you were given, but in every story and character that was shared, it was just wonderful. I learned things that I didn't know about before, a culture that I didn't know a lot about, a time period I didn't know about, and just people's attitudes towards things. And this is kind of, for me, everything that I want historical fiction to be when I read it. So why did I give it 4 stars? I have no idea. The final 4-star read that I had was for Iceman Awakens, and this was a book that, again, really fascinating time period set in basically the Ice Age, the end of the Ice Age. Is it really? Or was he just trapped in ice? It was definitely Neolithic times. And it's a really well told story about a young man coming of age, trying to figure out who he is, who he wants to be, and how to become that thing. And it was really well told. It was a fast paced read. It was a short book, and then it ended. And the end, okay, I was wrong. This is a book that made me wonder if I should have given it 3 stars. Because when I look at my list over there, I kind of feel much more like I do about To the Bright Edge of the World. I don't know. I'm questioning all my ratings now, guys, because I'm looking at what's paired together over there. And I'm thinking, were Station 11, Snowflower, and Iceman really all on the same levels? I really enjoyed Iceman. It was just that ending that ruined it for me. I almost feel like it's a 3. So I guess it's a low 4. Maybe I need to start doing fractions of numbers. I don't know. Anyway, I gave it 4 stars. It was all because the ending blew it. I hate to say that, but I just needed more. It built up to a really strong climax, and then it was just a weird ending the way it suddenly switched things. So not even like just left you on a really heavy cliffhanger. I just didn't like the approach to the cliff, if you will. The good news is I had 5 5-star reads this month because in addition to that, I read a lot this month somehow. The first five-star read that I'm going to talk about is Marina. This book was such a pleasant surprise to me. I enjoyed every moment of it, including the couple of times that it kind of like started creeping me out and making me cringe. It was a really good story set in a very interesting time and place and had fascinating characters. And even when I kind of knew what was going to be happening, I was still like eager to find out if I was right, and I wasn't disappointed. And yeah, it was just a delight to read. It is young adult, but it was told from a older person's perspective looking at their youth. So if you don't like young adult because you don't like the tone of a youth telling you a story, that's not what this book feels like. In fact, there was a part of me that questioned whether or not this book was appropriately labeled young adult or if it was just young adult because the protagonist is a young adult. Does that make sense? My next five-star read was Howard's End, and if I had to rank these 5 stars, oh, yeah, this would probably be tied for first. I loved this book. I cannot tell you enough how much I enjoyed Howard's End. It is definitely probably really close to one of the best books that I've read this year. I can't decide, guys. I can't decide. And that'll get me into my next five-star read, and then I'll talk about both of them because the other five-star read I actually physically have here, and it's The Phantom Tollbooth, which is another book that I just absolutely love. Like I read this again for the second time this year and tabbed my copy, and oh my gosh, guys, this book is just everything. If you haven't read it, read this book. It is just a delight. We read it this month in a Barnacle Buddy read along that I hosted on a Saturday where we did reading sprints, and a whole bunch of us just got on and read this book on and off all day long. Kat from Kat's Novel Adventure it joined me, and we just had a blast. It was so much fun reading this. It was fun hearing Kat's thoughts on this because it was her first time ever reading this. And just stop what you're doing. It won't take too long. Go read this book. It's just I'll stop gushing about it, and I'll start gushing again about Howard's End, because Howard's End is also a really, really good book. Why is it so good? The dialogue, the characters, the drama, the like everything. We were talking about telenovelas the other day. Howard's End is kind of an Edwardian telenovela. Like there is just insane stuff happening in this book, while at the same time, you're also hearing and listening and thinking about serious issues like women's rights and just relationships and classism, and it's humorous and witty and thoughtful and yeah, I mean, what's not to like about all of that? So I do still have 2 other five-star reads because this was a good reading month. And the next one I'm gonna talk about is Parable of the Sower. So I started a little Discord channel where I just started giving all my thoughts about it for a couple of days in a row, and then I just had to finish the book. And I listened to this on audio, which is one reason why I know that it's not always the audiobook that isn't working for me, because I listened to the entire book on audiobook, loved the audiobook, loved the book, and the only complaint I had about the audiobook was that it made it hard to stop and think about some of the things that were being said. Every page or section of audio was making me think really hard about like my own life and the life that this character was going through. Like if there's any book that you read that makes you just keep pausing over and over again and going, what would I do in that situation? This is one of those books. And yeah, in a very rare occasion for me, I actually bought the sequel. So, and I knew partway through the book that I was going to be buying and reading the sequel. So that says a lot because if you've watched my channel for a while, you know I don't tend to do sequels. And then the final 5 stars I gave to The Lion Women of Tehran. This book reminded me so much of Snowflower and the Secret Fan, just in terms of the discussion of friendship and just the difficulties that there can be in growing a friendship and maintaining a friendship and understanding friends and growing and staying close. It features 2 women who start as young children and grow up in their relationship, and you see how their relationship develops and evolves, just like you do kind of in Snowflower and the Secret Fan. This book was very impactful, talks about the time in Tehran where the rulers are changing, and so are the mindsets and laws, and not necessarily for the better. And it just follows these women's stories and just the paths that they take. I enjoyed every minute of it. Again, you have a really interesting narrative voice. I would say not as strong as Snowflower and the Secret Fan, but I would say that if you've read one of the two books, you should read the other because there are things in them that are different enough that you're not going to feel like you're reading the same story, but similar enough that you're going to enjoy both just as much. Which again makes me go, why did I give one 5 and the other 4? And did I give the right one the 5? Or should they both be 4s or both be 5s? I don't know. The numbers are set. I'm not changing them. All right, so that is everything that I read. I'll put up on the screen how many books I read in total this month and how many pages that ended up being. I'm just as curious to know as you guys are because I haven't added it up yet. I do want to update you on a couple of reading challenges that I had going on. So, in the month of June, July, and August, I am participating in the Big Book Summer Challenge, which is a book challenge where you are supposed to read at least one book that is over 400 pages by Labor Day, which is September 2nd this year, I believe. This month, I managed to finish one book that was over 400 pages. I'm in the middle of other books that are longer than that, but only one did I finish, and that was To the Bright Edge of the World. So kind of glad that I actually finished that one, now that I think about it. I am also participating in the hardest reading challenge you will ever do, and I had a lot of plans to work on reading 5 books from 5 different countries, and I didn't get as far in that as I was hoping to, largely because a lot of the books that I read this month that fit that prompt, I started before July 6th, and it was a July 6th start date, and I want to stick to that. So, yeah, I think I read a few books that fit into that category, but I haven't blacked out the space. So I'm just going to talk about the one space that I did black out, and that was to read a book that is written by a local author. The book that I read that fits that prompt is Iceman Awakens by Sharon Krasney. Sharon Krasney is a resident of Northern Virginia, and at the time that I bought this book and read it, that was where I was living. I did read some other books that begin to fill in a prompt. For example, my new release for July was The Lion Woman of Tehran, but that spot will not be actually blacked out on the bingo board until I have reached July of next year and have read one new release every single month. So I just get one spot blacked out this month, but I'm not complaining about it. And the final update I have on kind of my own reading challenge, I guess, is to share the final results on my bingo board. So I will put my TBR bingo board up on the screen, and you can see that I did get a bingo. And my reward was that I get to unlock any of the books that I hauled in the month of July. And what that means is that all the books that I hauled in the month of July will be included in my August TBR game. Now, you've probably already seen I've already released my August TBR game, but I did make sure to put all the books up there for that. So you may have seen some books on my shelf or that got chosen for my TBR that you were like, when did she get that book? Well, you'll see. All that to say, there will be a book haul coming out in the month of August, probably in the next week or two. So you have that to look forward to. And in the meantime, I'm collecting books in the hopes of getting some sort of way of rewarding myself in the month of August. I didn't actually do a bingo board for the month of August, but that's fine. So long as I read 3,000 pages in the month of August, I will allow myself to unlock any books that I haul this month, and there'll be another book haul in September. If I don't get my 3,000 pages read this month, then those books will just have to sit to the side staring at me and making me go, gosh, I wish I could read that. Anyway, that's all I have to say about what I read in the month of July. I do have quite a few things in the works, so you can watch my August TBR video to learn more about my plans for August, and I will have a couple announcements coming out. The one I do want to mention right now, in fact, there's two that I want to mention right now. One of them is for the year-long Year of Wonder Along. And that's just being hosted on Discord, where for 1 year I am working my way through the book, A Year of Wonder. And I am just going to be every week posting an update on there, listing my thoughts about my favorites or least favorite songs that I listened to from this book that week. And I also have a playlist that I am keeping updated with my favorite songs. And in fact, in the background of this video, if I can get it to work, you will be hearing at times, or maybe through the whole thing, my favorite favorite song of the month. This is one that I just can't get out of my head. I think about frequently, and I keep going back to the playlist to listen to the whole playlist again, and I keep just replaying this one song. I don't know. I really like it a lot. So that is everything I read in the month of July. I have a little stack here to show you, but this doesn't actually represent all of the books because quite a few of them were either library books and had to be returned before I moved, or were audiobooks for me this month. So I will put the other books that I also read and finished up on the screen, as well as the books that I DNF'd. There might not be a lot of room left. And then I will also show you the three other books that I did read from this month but just haven't finished. So this is all the reading that I did, and if it doesn't all fit on the screen, maybe I'll put it on the thumbnail and you can check that out. But I had a really great reading month. I enjoyed everything for the most part that I read this month. Definitely found some new favorites, and yeah, let me know how your month went, what you enjoyed, and if there's anything that you think I should pick up. All right, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.